Welcome back to the Funding Blueprint. We're thrilled to have Adam Pisk, co-founder of Bruntwork.com, join us. Adam's remarkable journey with Bruntwork has seen the company scale to over $6 million in monthly recurring revenue in less than 4 years, operating purely remotely with agents in the Philippines, Colombia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Currently, Bruntwork is hiring an impressive 500 new agents a month. With over 25 years of experience in sales and business across industries such as manufacturing, distribution, technology, and real estate, Adam has consistently leveraged outsourced staff to drive growth and efficiency. His expertise in building scalable business models, optimizing operational processes, and fostering innovation through strategic outsourcing is sure to provide valuable insights for our listeners. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Abraham. Nice to be on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Of course, it's our pleasure. So I wanna dive right in, and I want to talk about borders in particular. The traditional boundaries of talent acquisition are dissolving. With technology connecting us like never before, companies now have the opportunity to cast a wider net and recruit top talent from around the world. This opens up a vast pool of skilled professionals with diverse backgrounds and experiences. However, tapping into this global talent pool presents its own unique challenges. So, Adam, how can companies effectively navigate the intricacies of recruiting and hiring top talent from across the globe?
Yeah, and I think this has been the real shift over the last couple of years where even 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, when you needed to hire staff, you were looking locally because you needed someone in the office, you needed someone to look over their shoulder and the collaboration, the technology and the infrastructure and the frameworks weren't really there to look at what we call like the global employment. And the difference now in the shift, and I'll get back to answering the specifics of your question, is that now when you're hiring someone, unless they physically need to be there, so you're a builder and you need someone to lay bricks, or you need someone to be physically present for some other reason, you can now look at a talent pool which is global, that you can hire the best in the world as opposed to just the best within 5 mile radius of where your office is for people to commute in. And that's really the shift. So in terms of being able to do that, COVID had a lot of impact in terms of technology. And now, like we're doing now, I'm in Sydney, Australia. We're in Florida. um, and we're having a conversation like you're in the room next door to me. And that's the difference. The technologies like Zoom, the CRM infrastructure, and changes in that, the AI, and we'll talk about that later, has meant that you can have someone that lives literally on the other side of the world and manage them like they were sitting in a room next door to you that you just couldn't go into that room. So that's been the real shift. And in terms of the frameworks for doing that, companies like us, that's why we've emerged where we have the brand recognition where top talent come to us and say, hey, we want to work for a company like Bruntwork. So that makes the recruitment part easier. We get about 18,000 resumes a month at the moment from people globally wanting to work for us and our clients. And then having the people on the ground with the local knowledge in each of those countries to make sure that we understand what are the areas with the right internet, what are the areas with the right electrical supply. So you got the stability there. What are the areas where different talent pool with different skills are located? So you have people like us, companies like us that understand the countries in which you want to hire from, and then take you through the whole recruiting process to make sure you get the best globally. That answers that question.
Great points. It's impressive to see what the technology has done from a landscape perspective. It changed everything, whether it's from a communication standpoint. So it's crazy to see how far we've come in that degree. But those are some great points. I want to kind of shift forward our conversation and talk about legal and tax implications. Expanding your workforce beyond borders can unlock a world of talent, but it also introduces a complex web of legal and tax considerations. Now, as you know, you're the best in the business. Each country has their own set of employment laws and tax regulations and compliance requirements, but failing to navigate these complexities can lead to significant financial penalties and operational challenges. So, what would you say, Adam, are the key legal and tax implications companies can be aware of when they hire employees in multiple countries?
Yeah, and I think that's the term employee is the key thing in that. And what I mean by that is there are tax implications, but even more importantly are the labor considerations. So the why I suppose a company like us exists is that we have entities in those countries and we take that risk away from Australian, American, Canadian companies. That so the structure that we adopt is an American client will engage us as an Australian company, and it's just a services agreement. So it's just we W8 exemption. It's really just a service provision, tax deductible to the US company, right? So there's no relationship, there's no direct relationship between the US company and the actual staff member that's doing the work. So the US company engages with us, our Australian company engages with the local country entity that actually employs the agent as well. So you've got degrees of separation that give that compliance. But more importantly than that, and a lot of American companies do it, they go, well, it's just easy for us to put a job board and a job ad up in the Philippines. We'll go to onlinejobs.ph and we'll put a job up and we will engage directly with the staff member over there. And there is case law now where employees in the Philippines have taken US companies or Australian companies to their local labor courts because they are deemed to be employees, or they've taken them to US or Australian courts because they're being paid as freelancers when they're actually under direct control and supervision of those actual US companies themselves. And they've gone, well, what's the definition of employee? Well, it's direct control, and you've got a schedule, which they do, but you're paying them as a freelancer, but they're not a freelancer. So you need to be careful when you're doing that. And that's why companies like us exist, to take that risk away from US companies and Australian, Canadian. So you don't have that connection, that legal connection between you and the employee, and we manage all of that for you. So it's a very basic services agreement. You get an invoice monthly. You got all the benefits of direct supervision without the risk. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why we exist, is to solve that problem.
Right, right. So you mitigate the risk ultimately as a company.
Correct. Correct.
Right, which is amazing because I actually had no idea that existed. And I'm sure people sue other people all the time from a company, and from a definition standpoint of what really makes up an employee, but I don't really think it was that bad. So it's good that companies like Bruntwork actually exist because they kind of have the ability to decrease that aspect and have you serve as the middleman ultimately when facilitating that aspect. A couple points to mention on what you said. Now I want to kind of transition more to like cost benefit analysis. So when you hire remote employees, you offer them numerous benefits, right? But it's also essential to consider the full spectrum of costs that will actually be involved. So things that go beyond salary and benefits. So there are a lot of hidden expenses that can significantly impact your bottom line. So from technology investments to potential legal and tax complexities, the true cost of a remote workforce can be more than meets the eye. So, what are the key cost factors that companies should consider when evaluating the financial implications of hiring remote employees?
Yeah, and I think also there's been a shift in the last few years in terms of the reasons why you use remote employees. And years ago, a couple of years ago, it was a purely cost-related decision. So you outsourced really, or you used global employment because you wanted to reduce your workforce cost, and that was the driver of it. That's less the reason now. The reason now is because you want to find the best talent globally to work for your business. And yes, so it's there are definitely cost savings when you're going to the developing world, but it's not in terms of the decision to do it. It's not really. It shouldn't be the driver. And the other thing to think about is if you're making this decision just from a cost perspective, you're going about it the wrong way, and then you're not putting in the right infrastructure, as you said, to manage it. So there are costs, and you should be looking at it as if you're hiring an extension to your own workforce. So you should be dealing with your remote staff member as your own. So it shouldn't be that that remote person is seen as, oh, this is John, the outsourced person in the Philippines, and they just do this one function. You should bring them into the company culture and the company and the infrastructure. And that means providing them with the right software so they can do their job. I mean, there's this misconception that I want cheap labor and therefore I should give them cheap infrastructure. But what's the return on that? So you need to invest in the right technology to monitor and manage them. You need to invest in the right internet for them to have. I mean, we provided, as a company, we provide a computer internet, but if you're doing it directly, you don't want to just save cost on that. You want to give them the right tools so they can deliver on it. So yes, you need to also shift the way you do manage people in the sense that a remote workforce should be very metric driven. So yes, bring it into the company culture, but people need to be very clear on what success looks like when they work remotely. And if they're working in a room in their house and they're not given enough specific direction, then you can't really expect the results. You need to be very clear on outcome metrics and potential expectations. And again, a good way to manage that, particularly in a remote workforce in the developing world, is utilizing incentives. And a small amount of money in the developing world goes a long way. And really, my view is helps focus people on delivering what they need to do within the time frame and exceeding that. And that's a strategy that I really use in managing our workforce, where we set targets, we set KPIs, we set OKRs, and we incentivize people for hitting those and exceeding those. And then it's really a win-win. So that's really the way to look at it is I'm not doing this to save cost. Sure, you will save 70% approximately anyway, but that's not the point is give these people the resources to do the job they need to do and give them the support. And there's a cost in doing that, but it's minimal. It's minimal compared to the return.
It sounds like it's an awesome opportunity. I've outsourced a lot, and I've gotten a lot of good results. I mean, I set certain objectives, certain expectations, certain metrics need to be added and to be tracked. But I think it's just clearly communicating. That's what it all comes down to ultimately. When you're working with somebody, whether it's outsourced or anything in general, just outline everything that you want to be done, the scope of work, if you will, so they know what expectation that you're looking for. So I couldn't agree more with you on that. I want to shift our focus and I want to talk to you more about the augmented workforce. The traditional model of building an in-house team for every function is evolving, but strategically combining internal talent with external resources and AI, companies can create a lot more of an agile and efficient workforce. But this approach, often referred to as an augmented workforce, offers the potential to optimize costs, enhance capabilities, and accelerate growth. So, Adam, with your experience, how can businesses effectively leverage outsourcing and AI to augment their in house teams and achieve these benefits?
Yeah, and I think the AI component is the real game changer of that part of it. And we've just seen really in the last, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, the shift. And when you're able to combine an augmented workforce with the power of AI behind it, that's where you see real power in being able to scale your business. And we've just seen some extraordinary results where you're able to take a smart person in the Philippines or Colombia or wherever and give them the power of AI tools effectively into their operation. You get someone that you're paying $5 an hour be able to deliver something that someone else, even 6 months ago, wouldn't be able to deliver at $100 an hour comparison rate in the US. And we've had some really good case studies of that, where Harvard graduates out of the US on 150,000 base salary, starting salary in law firms, are now being beaten in terms of productivity and quality of work in blind study trials that we've been doing with $5 an hour people out of the Philippines with the right tools. And that's scary in a lot of ways where things are going. But if you tap into it, there's a lot of power in that. So the idea is find smart people, give them the right tools, and AI is just a real game. And I'm not talking just standard ChatGPT. I'm using the right AI tools that integrate with your technology stack that can really supercharge an augmented workforce. So again, when you're looking at cost and you're looking at results, you are going, okay, where in the world can I get the best people at the best value, give them the right tools, and then that really can help me scale and supercharge my business. But you got to have the framework that you got to manage people in a remote context. And you've got to be able to buy into that and get your management team to buy into that. But we've seen some extraordinary results.
No, I'm sure. I mean, that's actually something I want to talk to you about next is actually managing performance. How does one go about doing that? So, you know that managing performance in traditional office setting is challenging enough, but measuring and managing the performance of remote employees introduces a new set of complexities. Traditional performance metrics might not be as effective in a remote environment, right? Because they're two different places. And the managers need to adapt their approach to ensure fairness and accountability. So, how can companies really like effectively measure and manage the performance of remote employees? Is there specific dashboards, tools, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it's the mindset. It starts with the mindset. Like, and initially people would look at their remote staff and say, "Hey," and they'd message them and say, "Hey, I messaged you at 12:06 and you didn't respond until 12:09. What were you doing for those 3 minutes?" Or screen sharing, where you people are looking at screen sharing and checking, tracking movements, etc. I'm very against all of that. I'm very against it. My view is if you have a staff member that you feel you have to do that, you've got the wrong staff member. Hire people with the skill and capability and trust them like you would if you were hiring a person sitting in your office to do the job. If they don't do the job, then let's find someone who's going to do the job. But the micromanagement on time, which is what people they go, well, I'm paying this person by the hour. I want to make sure every second they're actually doing something. But the way to really do it is set very clear objectives. What is this person meant to achieve today? What are they meant to have achieved by midweek, by end of week, by month? Very clear metrics in terms of what they're meant to achieve, in terms of the quality and the deliverables. And then, as you mentioned initially, it's the communication of that. You're going to get someone, if you've got someone university educated, they're smart, they're working for you, they're a professional. They don't want to be treated like a kid and micromanaged to the nth degree of what were you doing at 12:07? Okay, I went to the bathroom and I forgot to message you that I was doing that. But we have clients that will want to do that. We have clients that will say, "Hey, we want a camera on all the time so I can see the staff member what they're doing and I can see what they're working on." And we got rid of this client because I just didn't agree with it. Where he was a guy actually in Florida. He had in his office, he had 12 screens up so he could watch his staff members all the time in the Philippines. And I was like, what are you doing with you? How are you going to scale your business? All you're doing is watching your staff. Um, so the mindset is outcome, right? Not managing by time, but managing by results. And you need a team and you need to build a team, and that's what we hire for, people that understand that type of management. So the staff member goes, okay, I've got these deliverables. If I'm not hitting the deliverables for whatever reason, I've got to communicate that in advance and set different expectations on time. Or I'm hired for this job, I've got to hit it. The end of the month, I've got to get this, if it's digital marketing, I've got to get this number of followers or this number of organic engagement. And this is the strategy I've got to present. And if it doesn't work, this is the split test I've got to do. If it's sales, I'm focused on getting 20 appointments a week. That's the minimum I've got to do for I've got to do 100 dials. It's metric orientated. And short, treat them as a staff member, bring them in, have the culture. Don't just treat them as a number, but be very clear in terms of expectations. So in terms of technology to do that, there's a lot out there. There's the Trello's, Asana's project management tool, Monday.com. I love HubSpot, which is the tool that we use. You've got sales engagement software on the sales side, like Gong, like SalesLoft. I can go on and on. There's some amazing technology to manage it these days. That's not the limitation. It's just the mindset to be able to see someone and manage them on an outcome basis.
For sure. And even to add on to what you said, I mean, how I run my team is I kind of have a metric of my own ultimately is like, how do I know that I could trust you? Well, you're doing things consistently over time. That's the formula. In order for me to trust you and work with you, you're doing things consistently over time. You're delivering results. You're living up to the company's expectation. You're doing everything that you should be doing. And if you can't, you're communicating it. But that's really the definition of trust, knowing that we're able to work with one another. And even to what you mentioned earlier on, I think it's important to treat everybody like a family because at the end of the day, you are a family. You're working, you're seeing each other pretty much day and night at times, depending on where you are in the world. So it's important to give them that feel and bring them into your culture. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. I wouldn't treat them as a foreigner. I've had many experiences with many people that I've worked with that I advise for that have just treated outsourced individuals as foreigners and not really a member of their own family. It's a shame. It's a pity. It's because that that the fact that having them not feel unwanted or needed really contributed to the work and the outcomes ultimately of their work. So to your point, I do agree with you on that. It is important. I want to talk about ROI of global talent for a second. Building a global workforce is exciting, but it's essential to measure its impact on the bottom line, right? So while the potential benefits of a diverse global team are clear, justifying the investment in terms of return on the investment, ROI, is vital. So how can companies effectively measure the ROI of hiring global talent?
Yeah, and that question is actually, it seems actually a very straightforward question because you go, okay, well, if I'm hiring someone at 70% less cost than what I'd be hiring locally, then, it could be 80% less cost or 60%. If I'm hiring at significantly less cost, there's an immediate ROI. But that's not necessarily the case. And goes back to the previous point. If you're not managing that person well, you've got a higher risk of turnover with a global team. And this is where it comes down to you've got to get things set up right from the beginning and have those metrics in place. Otherwise, what happens is you get in the delusion of I'm hiring cheaper people, but if they're not delivering the same results, if they're not delivering the same outcome, or they're delivering a lot less, you're not really getting that result. And if you're turning them over, so you're constantly recruiting all the time, then you're not getting the same results. So because you've got that real cost of downtime and then continuous training. So you need to have when you hire someone you need to set them up for success. That's important. You also need to set up your training. So if you're a new staff member of mine, I want to make sure my training is all recorded. I want to make the Loom videos, etc., to make sure that if you leave for whatever reason, I don't have to spend another month going over video calls, real time training the next person. I've got all that in place. You then got to set yourself up for success so you don't have that turnover. And that's bringing them into the culture. That's setting up the metrics. So your ROI is very high, is 70% higher than local talent if you've got people that deliver the same outcome and you're not constantly rehiring. And that's obviously, again, why I'd say someone like Bruntwork, we bring in our value because we've had the experience of doing that with companies that are scaling. So we know how to prepare them, hire staff, and help them on that journey, hold their hands to make sure that they're not making those mistakes so they are getting the ROI. And the other thing is, in the beginning, when you start going, if you haven't done this before, be prepared for a learning curve. So there will be additional costs at the beginning when you start outsourcing because you don't know what you're doing. It will help you to really limit that. But you might think a certain role is in a certain job description is right for outsourcing. We might need to tweak it, different cultural aspects. So you've got to invest at the beginning. It's not just going, I'm going to get a 70% additional ROI because of labor cost savings. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, look, we do the same exact thing from, and I'm sure many companies do this from like training systems. I can't stress out the importance of that. We like to refer to them as like universities ultimately because they are. They're like training for employees and they're universities ultimately that kind of show everyone what they have to do in that respect in their own territory, in their own departments. So I agree with you on that entirely. I think it's important to have a training system because think of so much time that you're throwing out. by not having that. You going on these calls constantly, time that you could be spending improving your business and having better outcomes. So I agree with you on that. I think it's a great point. This has been great, Adam. I had an awesome time. We spoke about a lot of great things. I'm sure our audience will definitely enjoy and have a lot of takeaways from this conversation. So thank you for joining us for another episode today. We hope you gained valuable insights into how to tap into the global talent pool, the complexities of legal and tax considerations, and the power of outsourcing and AI in augmenting your team. A special thanks to our guest Adam Pisk for sharing his expertise and shedding light on these essential topics. If you want to learn more about Adam and the incredible work that he's doing at Bruntwork, be sure to check out their website and social media in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice and startup stories. And until next time.